Today is the 3rd of January. Happy New Year to everybody who's tuning in to watch this. I'm going to give my second book recommendation today. And I'm going to try to preset this up a little bit. We live in a strange world, okay? There's all kinds of things that we don't understand. I think we can all agree on this, right? But I think there's two types of people in the world. You have the people that think that everything has already been explained. You can explain everything with rational scientific thought. And then we have the other part that says we can't explain everything, okay? Science can't explain everything. So I want to touch a little bit on a few things, and I'm trying to bring it home for you, and why it's important and why it kind of connects to the high strangeness of various topics that many of us, that all of us have heard about: UFOs, Bigfoot, and so on and so forth, So I think the first thing I want to kind of touch on, I watch a lot of YouTube. I don't really watch TV, but I watch a lot of YouTube. And I've got my favorite people and not so favorite people. And there are subjects that I go to learn things, to multiple places to understand things. Even if I'm fixing something on a car I've never done before, I go to YouTube. I think we all do this at this point, right? So in my journey, in the journey I've had in my life with the unknown stuff, trying to reconcile it to my Christian faith has been a bit of a challenge. So I start to look at the evidence that's presented to me, and I have to go to the biblical sources to try to find an explanation for things, right? That's when you're trying to fit things into your paradigm. Now, some people don't have a biblical paradigm. I do. So one of the things I've learned about the what's the best way to put this? The topics of the unknown, the fringe stuff, the UFO, Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, flat Earth, moon landing, whatever you want to call it, conspiracy theory, right? You gotta figure out what you gotta fit that in your parameters, So into your paradigm. So one of the things that I've learned once you're immersed in this subject is the Christian perspective, and I've mentioned this in other videos, always labels the things they don't understand as demonic. Everything is freaking demonic. Okay? I get sick of hearing it. Oh, I see things and I see the demonic. It's how do you know? So this is what I'm going to touch on. How do you know it's demonic versus angelic? How does the average person know what is demonic and what is angelic? One can say you have the gift of discernment. I want to lay something before you, and I want people that hear this, you can go and check scriptures for yourself, right? So you have angelic appearances in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, okay? And in the canonized scripture, there's only two angels that are really named. There's Gabriel and Michael. And Michael, just from the biblical source, is considered an archangel. He is considered a top-tier angel, chief captain of the angelic armed forces, so to speak. Where do you find this? Well, you find this in the book of Daniel. In the book of Daniel, you have Daniel praying for an answer for a vision that he's had or a dream that he had. I can't remember which one. Gabriel is bringing him a message, but he gets thwarted by an angel, a fallen angel that is stronger than him. And after he struggles with this angel for a specific amount of time, he has to call for Michael to come and get rid of that particular angel before Gabriel can come in and give the message. And throughout Scripture, if you go through Scriptures, even in the New Testament, Gabriel appears to the Virgin Mary. Gabriel appears to the husband of Mary's cousin Elizabeth, who is going to be pregnant with John the Baptist. Gabriel makes, so he appears in the New Testament and the Old Testament. He seems to be a messenger of some sort. And in case you didn't know, the word angel actually means messenger. So you have these, and there's angels of different sizes. Look in the book of Revelation. So you have this diversity of angelic forces that we really don't know anything about. For the most part, they appear human. They look human enough. They look human enough to pass as human, but they look different enough to be recognized as something unearthly. Okay? The three angels that come and visit Abraham. Abraham knows that these are not just regular men. And when they go into the city of Sodom, right, Lot recognizes that these guys are not quite human. And when the men of Sodom come banging at Lot's door, wanting to have relations, they want to know those beings, they know that there is something different about them. So I'm making the case that there's something about human. In the New Testament, in one of the epistles of Paul, he says, hey, I don't know if it was Paul, but it's in the New Testament. It says, hey, don't always make sure you entertain strangers, because sometimes you have entertained angels in disguise. So I want to say that. Now, here's the thing I want to draw the point to. Christians will often say, well, Satan appears as an angel of light. It says Satan will appear as an angel of light. It doesn't mean any of his minions do. Remember that. It doesn't mean any of his minions appear as an angel of light, but Satan himself can. And probably because Satan was an anointed cherub. He's the only angelic being in all of Scripture that's been called an anointed cherub. That has a different calling on it than anything else. So anyway, I want to jump to the book of Revelation, and you can find this. And an angel appears to John. John is the guy that walked with Jesus, touched Jesus, hung out with Jesus, ate meals with him, probably stood by a tree as Jesus took a leak. Let's just be honest, right? So in the midst, when the angel is giving John this message, John falls on his knees and starts to worship the angel. Now, I want you to really think about this. This is a guy that walked with Jesus, and he falls on his knees and he's worshiping the angel that brings him, the vision and the message and everything else. And the angel says to him, hey, stop doing this. Get up. I am a fellow servant just like you. And here is the rub. Now, I want people to understand it. Demons do not respect boundaries. Angels respect boundaries. Seems to be in the occult. Okay, it's very easy to call forth demonic forces. It's very easy to call forth anything in the demonic realm, because there is only one rule that they will kind of live by, and that's draw close to me and I draw close to you. That's a spiritual law. That's a spiritual rule. But angels respect the boundaries that God has given them. They don't appear unless they've been given permission to appear, right? So even if you attempt to draw close to an angel, it won't do it. But a fallen angel might. You understand what I'm saying? The fallen angel isn't respecting the boundary, but the angels that keep the covenant with the Lord, they keep their boundaries. So angels always keep their boundaries. That's, whatever they're given, whatever message. This is why they're not popping up everywhere. And it's easy to summon demonic spirits. It's easy to try to contact a fallen angel, because they don't respect any boundaries. Now, what am I going into this? Well, it's really kind of hard to reconcile a lot of so-called alien stuff, okay, with, in a Christian perspective, everything falls into one of two things. It's either demonic or angelic, but nobody ever talks about the angelic, right? So everything is demonic, right? What if, and what I just told you about the angels coming in a form of body, they were eating food with Abraham. Remember this, they were eating food with Abraham. So, at the very least, they can appear as human, but not quite human. There's something unique about them that human beings realize, okay, they're human enough, but they're not really quite human. What does that look like? What is that? Well, I've struggled with this because of the things I've been told and the things that I've witnessed, the things I've been exposed to, and I finally found something that really explained it real well, and it's this book, okay? This book is called Birthright. It's written by a guy named Timothy Alberino. You can find him on YouTube. The book you can find on Amazon. It's called Birthright, the Coming Post-Human Apocalypse and the Usurpation of Adam's Dominion on Planet Earth. This book will explain so much. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am completely wrong. But this put together all the thoughts that I was kind of gathering and the information I have and all the things I've been exposed to over the past 12 to 15 years. So I'm going to lay out a case for this. Let's say that the creator of the universe created other beings, firstborns, so to speak, or elder races, where mankind is the youngest sibling in the family. Okay. And let's say that you have the fall of man in the Garden of Eden. We all know the story. Adam, Eve, the so-called apple, and the seed of the serpent, and the serpent comes in, blah, 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 blah. Right? It's my personal opinion that, and this is my thought, that when there was this cosmic rebellion, you have to remember the fall of Satan takes place before the creation of the earth, right? So if you have these elder races, and let's say they're on other planets, and you have these elder races, and if Satan persuades a third of the angels to come with him, who's to say that Satan didn't persuade a third of whatever else is out there to come with him, right? So when man comes, there's a problem, right? Because Satan foresaw, because he's the anointed cherub, okay? He saw the coming of humankind in the unique position that mankind would have with the Father, with the Creator. There was a relationship that the elder races didn't have. And that is what caused the war in heaven, the rebellion. That's what caused the satanic rebellion. It was over us. So what happens if you have these other beings? They're flesh just like you. Let's say they're gray aliens. Let's say they're what they call the Nordics or whatever. And you have these other races. And some of them fell and some of them didn't. The ones that didn't aren't going to respect the boundaries that are laid out. The ones that I should say the ones that did fall with Satan, that came and followed him, they're not going to respect the boundaries. But the ones that stayed true to Elohim, they are going to respect the boundaries, right? So when you listen to like UFO encounters and you have these spaceships and so on, look, you don't have to travel vast distances in space. If you have technology to bend space over, to take two pieces. You take this distance and this distance and fold them over so they meet here. If you have the technology to warp space like that, you don't need to travel vast distances. You just need to know how to control gravity. That's all you need. And I think if you look at the work that Tesla did and stuff, you can kind of understand this. So this book will kind of explain how all of that came about. Now, I don't necessarily agree with it, but this guy tries to back up his thesis and his stuff with scripture. Is he right? I don't know. But boy, oh boy, it's a good read. I recommend everybody get this book. If you want to try to understand the whole alien thing and the whole idea of fallen angels and demonic spirits and all that stuff, this will give you a perspective that is probably not like you've ever heard before. Now, I will say this. Usually, the simplest explanation for a phenomenon is usually the truth, right? When you go down rabbit holes of conspiracies and so on and so forth, it gets a little crazy. And maybe this is a little more complicated than it should be, right? But one of the things I've learned when you study scripture, okay, and let's just say, for example, Jesus gives a story, right? There's usually a meaning behind it, but it can be multifaceted. And probably the best example of this is the parable of the Prodigal Son. You know, we all know this story. You got two brothers. One is older, one is younger, right? One wants the inheritance before the father dies, which is unheard of, and he goes out and he wastes it on wine, women, and song, and ends up eating out a pig trough and decides he's going to go back to his father's house and beg forgiveness and live as a servant instead of a son. We all know the story, but if you pay attention to the nuances of the story, the older brother is jealous of the younger brother because the youngest brother went out there and lived like a slob, like a sinner, comes back. And the father welcomes him back in the household with a celebration. And the older brother is jealous and pissed off. Hey, you didn't do this for me or my friends, right? Even though I stayed with you all this time. Now, ultimately, that story, as Jesus told it, it pissed off the Jewish leading class, the upper class, the Pharisees and the religious leaders, because they kind of understood it, right? The older brother is actually Israel in the proper standing with God, being with God the whole time. And the younger brother is the bloody, wayward Gentiles, the Gentiles who are with the pigs, okay, the unclean. But what if it has a third meaning, where you have the older brothers with his friends, right? And then you have humanity as the younger brother coming in from the pig pen. Now, are both of these scenarios possible? You can make that out to be, yes. Does it mean that is it? It's definitely the whole Jewish Gentile thing for sure. But it could have multiple meanings at the same time. So, yeah, Timothy Alberino's got this is his picture on the back. He's got a YouTube channel. I really recommend watching his stuff. He will make you think. At the very least, it makes you think, okay? And I want people to start thinking beyond the whole concept of everything I don't understand is demonic. So let's take, I'm going to try to tie this up within a minute or two. You take John, bowing down to worship an angel. John, the guy who walked with Jesus, who saw the miracles, who saw Jesus on the water, everything he knows. He saw Jesus raised from the dead and go up to heaven 40 days later. And this guy is bowing and worshiping an angel. Now you think John would know better. But what about us? So I want you to think about ancient human beings coming in contact with supernatural beings that make this claim that they are a god. Right? Right? So you take these ancient human beings and some guy shows up and says, I'm Zeus. Look, and there's something dazzling about them. You don't think they're going to bow down and worship him as a god? Right? Does that mean Zeus was demonic? It's very possible, right? But see, that's the point I'm trying to make. It's human beings aren't able, we are not always able to discern between what is demonic and what is angelic. If you have, now John knew better. He's bowing before an angel. He knows it's an angel of the living God, and he still bows down to worship him. How much, and think about all the stuff that guy knew, but he still did that. How much more would a primitive schlub like you or I be willing to do? So I lay this out there because human beings, it is on our nature to worship something. Anything that seems more powerful or what we don't understand, we will bow down to it. We will bow down to it. So any type of supernatural being, I don't care what it is. I don't care what kind of supernatural being it is. Human beings will have a proclivity to get on their knees and bow down before it. We are designed to worship someone. All right, but we, in many ways, worship everything. I mean, the ancient Egypts worshipped crocodiles and sacrificed children to crocodiles, right? They worshipped hippopotamus and birds and everything else. And we can go down a litany of other cultures who go down all kinds of crazy things with crazy stuff. It is a human thing. But what I'm trying to say is there are people that think that an angelic being is an angelic being, but is actually a demonic being. And you have people who think demonic beings are angelic. This is the way it is. All you have to do is realize there is an occult that practices stuff that a spiritual being will answer, but you got to remember that the angelic will always respect the boundaries that God laid out for them. And it isn't hard. You can look in Scripture and see where those boundaries are. They're always given, and when angels appear, they're always given, and there's a mission that's given and a message that's given, and they always announce, hey, don't be afraid. I'm so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. An angel comes and announces the birth of Christ. All the shepherds that experience this are terrified, right? There's a lot to be said for this. Do I know the difference? No. And I think in the end, Scripture's really, it says, test the spirits. Scripture says that. How do you test the spirits? I'm going to tell you how you test the spirit. You test the spirit by asking them if they come in the name of the one true God who gave his son as a ransom for all mankind. That's how you test the spirit. You should get an answer. That's how you test the spirit. That's how you test the spirit. That is not how you test flesh and blood, okay? Because flesh and blood can make something up and just lie to you. But that's how you test the spirit. The point of all of this, and I want people to start to think beyond demonic and angelic. But what I want people to think about is good and evil. And how good and evil can influence not only in the spirit realm, but it also influences the flesh. Right? Any creature, any being with that has cognitive free will. And we're not the only ones. Angels have cognitive free will as well. Okay? Can make a choice on who they choose to serve. That's what it really comes down to. So this book will give you maybe a better understanding on the whole concept of the alien phenomena. I guess maybe that's how I could understand that. It'll give you a better idea of what I would call an alien phenomenon. But by definition, anything not of this world is extraterrestrial. Anything that comes from off-world is extraterrestrial. Angelic and demonic forces would be considered extraterrestrial by our definition of extraterrestrial. Try to put your thinking in a different spot and go down a different path. Now, I don't know if any of this is true. Like I said, the simplest explanation is usually the truth, or is usually the best explanation. But that isn't always true either. But for the most part, you know, statistically, if you look at it, maybe. So pick up this book, Birthright, give it a whirl, give it a read, and give me your thoughts in the comment section. And that's 25 minutes of your time. I thank you for watching. Till next time.